Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how I make my paper dahlia. This flower is part of my wedding flower backdrop that I'm making for my wedding, and these are one of the flowers that I'm adding into the whole backdrop, along with roses and other flowers that I'll have a video up for in time. So this paper dahlia is actually very easy to make, however it's very time consuming, and I'll go ahead and show you how I make mine. To start, what I use is a 7-inch circle. This goes underneath the flower, and it's what I glue all the petals to. Because it's underneath the flower, I don't really care too much what the color is like, so I'm just using white. And I have about 64 to 72 pieces of paper. Normally for dahlias you can use a square piece of paper. What I've done is cut out rhombuses. And so the reason why I prefer a rhombus is when I'm folding these together and gluing it into the petals, it has a deeper V shape here, so to speak. I can't quite describe it. If you're using just a square piece of paper, this might be a little bit shorter. You see a little bit less of this groove. I think it's nice so that you can see more into the flower with each petal. Cutting out rhombuses does take a little bit more time. I use my Select Cameo, but if you wanted just to make these, you can make 3-inch square pieces of paper and do the same as I will be doing in this video. And so I'll show you what I do to prep the petals. Eventually we'll be rolling one side to the other and gluing it, but what I like to do, because this is a thicker piece of paper, I use my bone folder to curl it at the edges. Because it's a rhombus, I like to glue the shorter sides together so that the longer side gives that deeper groove that I was talking about. So what I do is I like to hold the piece of paper like this, make sure it's lined up at that point, and I put a dot of glue here and a dot of glue there. And then I just roll it. So when I curled the edges of the piece of paper with the bone folder, it helps make that folding easier. If you're using more lightweight paper, that's actually easier to do. You probably don't need that step, but with cardstock, I wanted to skip the sort of creasing and lines by curling it, and also for it's easier to glue that way. So what I do is I just hold with my finger inside and glue both sides of the piece of paper down, and then you get this. And so I'll do that again. So with my rhombus, if you're just using a square piece of paper, it doesn't matter which side. I want to make sure that I have the smaller or the shorter sides together, pointed towards me. I curl the sides, and then I just make sure that the tip is pointy so that I'm doing it correctly. It really doesn't matter because you'll be gluing the bottom half of this petal onto the flower, so you don't have to be as precise. But I glue one drop of glue here and a drop of glue there. Just roll it and hold it. The reason why I put 2 dots of glue is so that that inner corner of the petal doesn't stick out. Sometimes they'll do that. It just makes it look a little bit more neat after the flower's put together. And I mentioned that the reason why I have 64 to 72 is I can't seem to make them uniform and even with each flower. Sometimes I add more, sometimes I add less, depending on the spacing. So I just make sure I cut out extra for each flower. I'm planning to make a lot of them, so it really doesn't matter if I have more petals from one flower to the next. Overall, I'll probably be using all of them. But I've already made quite a few of them, so I've just stacked them up like this. Otherwise, it would take forever to do this. This is what I mean by it being time consuming. These are just extra. I have about 70 here. I'm just going to put them here. I may need them at the end. So I'll put away my bone folder. What I like to do before I start gluing down is just to lay them around the circle. I'm gluing them about a little over halfway down and about a finger width apart. If you don't lay them out, sometimes you might get to the end and you've found that you glued it a little funny. So laying it out just saves time in the end. You don't have to rip out your work and redo it. I've done that myself, and so it just takes a little bit of extra time, but it's completely worth it. One of the great things about the Dahlia is that it adds a lot of dimension, and so using this flower, if you're creating a backdrop, really helps with visual interest. So I can tell that these are not laid out as evenly. I want to move them. This is what I mean by just laying them out. At first it'll look like it's even, but then you'll realize that it's not. And if you've already glued it down, it might be too late. You certainly don't have to arrange the petals as I have. You can have them closer towards the center and have less petals, and so obviously that just means a smaller flower. I'm laying out this way because I'd like to have a flower about this size. I think it's about 16 or 17 petals for the first layer. I'll start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 is about the number of petals that I wanted for this flower anyway. So to start, I'll just choose any petal. What I do is I flatten the bottom cone, and then I put glue on the bottom, and then I just simply press it on. And then I'll do this for the entire layer. Be careful of the hot glue gun. I just glued part of my hand to the petal and that really hurt. You don't need to put a lot of glue, especially if you have a stable base, which is this circle here. But you can certainly put more glue if you'd like. So again, I'm flattening the bottom cone, adding glue to that portion of the petal, and then gluing it down. Again, I want to keep about a finger width space between each petal for the next layer of petals that I'll be adding to this. When making these flowers, what I like to do is make them in batches, and so I will cut out a large number of these petals. Since I use my machine, I just keep a huge stack of them together, and then when I'm ready, I'll curl them all at once with my bone folder, and I'll glue them all at once, and then once I have enough for about 4 flowers, I'll just glue and put them together. Doing it in stages just makes it easier. Otherwise, sometimes I feel like I'm going insane with the number of petals that I'm doing. If I'm doing one flower at a time, it just feels like it doesn't go quick enough. So it helps if you can do it in batches. Alright, so that's my first layer. You can tell I didn't quite do it as evenly. There's more space here than there, but that's okay. And then what I'd like to do is, as I'm laying out my next one, I'll also crease the bottom, flatten it, flatten that cone shape. So just start laying them all down. Alright, there you have it. This is my dahlia that I've made with my rhombus shaped petals. Again, you can make it with squares. I'll show you what a flower looks like when you make it with squares. This one I've made with 3-inch square pieces of paper. Now you see that they don't look as different, but I find that this here isn't as long or wide. I like the fact that it dips a little bit more with the rhombus shaped petals, but overall this is what you get. Again, you could tell it wasn't hard to glue all the pieces around. It was just prepping the petals and then gluing them and making sure your fingers don't get burned in the process. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.